Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about how I made my first $250,000, how I made my first $250,000, and at what age did I make my first $250,000. Now, in order to get to this number, we're not going to talk about your properties as if there's no debt on it. No, we're going to include the properties and include the debt. Now, I didn't break down uh, how much debt is owed versus how much the properties are worth, but I can tell you kind of estimate it. I can kind of estimate what the property is worth because I just looked at it not too long ago versus how much is owed. And so, just to get started, one, the easiest gateway to entry is the stock market. But before we get into the stock market, I do want to state that it is, again, very, very important to always have an emergency fund. I don't like the 3 month thing that people talk about. It should be at least 6 months for emergencies. Once you have the 6 month emergency fund, you don't even count that into your into your net worth. If someone wants to count their 6 month emergency fund into their net worth, it makes you feel a little bit better. Go ahead and do that. That's on you. But how I made my first $250,000. So this is a good or a bad thing. You can take it however you want because I personally believe that without college, I could have potentially made even more money. But I went to college and I do reap some benefits of going to college. So let's talk about it. When I was in college, I was working. So I worked for Domino's as a delivery boy. And when I was working at Domino's as a delivery boy, at 18 years old, on a bike in the middle of winter, in the worst neighborhoods ever in New York City, I was making $20 a day in tips. I would do about 28 deliveries every single day. I still know the damn numbers. Whether I did 22 or 28 deliveries, I would always end up with $20 in tips. It's pizza, so I can't blame them. But whether I did 22 to 28 deliveries, I always ended up with $20 in tips. If Ryan, if you're watching this, you was my old general manager. I still love you, my guy. So that $20, I would use that to purchase breakfast in the morning every time. I was also in school playing football on scholarship, so I didn't have any college expenses. I made sure that my mom wasn't going to pay for college for me, and that way I could just focus on stacking that cheddar, okay? I would bring pizzas home sometimes for everyone to eat. I had a family of 5, including my mother and including myself. And so, however I could help out, then I would give my mom $200 a month in rent. It's nothing. She was just teaching me responsibility as an 18-year-old kid. But, when you're 18, you're in college and you're working. I think that's enough responsibility as it is. But hey, 200 was absolutely nothing. And I'm super, super happy and proud to have been given those lessons. Now, throughout the course of the 10 months, I believe, that I was with Domino's, I was able to save $10,000 on a $10.50 an hour income. So that $10,000, again, if you was watching my previous videos, you'll know that my friend showed me Robinhood right around 18 years old. My birthday is late in like June, so I was still 18. He showed me Robinhood. He was trading penny stocks, and I decided that I was going to get into it. I didn't say nothing. I just saw that money could be made, didn't know anything about Robinhood, and I bought some horrible stocks, but I put $2,000 into Robinhood. I didn't put all my money into those 2 stocks though. I was only trading maybe $100, $200, and I just kept my $1,800 on the sidelines to deploy at any time. So, while while learning Robinhood, I started to mess with other companies like Ford, like Nvidia. These were companies that I was investing in when I was 18, 19, maybe even 20. But none of those companies are in my portfolio now. Nvidia is still a great company. It's just that I don't invest in it. And I honestly, I don't know much about it these days because I haven't really looked at it in the last 3 years. So I'm tailored more towards American businesses and brands, or at least they're supposed to be American businesses and brands. With understanding the stock market, the stock market is going to be very important in this conversation to how I made 250,000. So please don't think that I'm just talking to be talking. Stock market is super super important. Okay, so as I graduate college, I dabbled in options trading. I dabbled in day-to-day trading. I dabbled in swing trading. And when I say day-to-day, I mean day trading for those of you who are not familiar. All these terminologies you can start to reference. You can start to Google and understand them. I'm not going to go over them all in this video. But understand that with that 4 years that I had in college, I was able to now maximize my understanding of the stock market. When I graduated college, I was making about 200 a year, 2,000 a year. I started making 200 a year and then ended making 2,000 a year. Now, not including my retirement accounts, I make about 6,000 a year in the stock market. And that's really just because the money is compounding and growing on its own. And of course, I'm adding more to it, and so I should eventually make more money. I mean, that's just the crux of it all. So now that I understand the stock market, when I graduated college, I was back in New York. I was working security at the time back in college. Now I'm a manager at Blaze Pizza, making 17.30 or 17.50 an hour. At that point, that's like 35 to 40,000 a year or something like that. I was 21 years of age, and Amazon had already offered me a job, but it was 3 months or 5 months out. Whatever the case may be, I was going to start in January. So I'm working at Blaze Pizza. It's a 2-hour bus ride just to get to the job, 2-hour bus ride just to get home, and I'm working 9, 10 hours a day. Of course, I get to eat for free just the lunch, and then I was always closing the store. So I was a closer. I was always closing. I was going out. I was promoting the store because it was new in Queens, Fresh Meadows, and I was just a hard worker. I had 3 jobs before I landed that Blaze Pizza job because I wasn't going to be the bum sitting in my mom's house. So, not to deviate too much, just understand that I always kept a job. I always kept working, and I was good at saving. So now my uncle comes to me when I was working at Blaze, and he says, I'm buying real estate. When are you going to purchase a house? I'm 21, just graduated college, never heard anyone talk about this stuff. And I'm in New York. So I'm like, yeah, I'll save up 60,000 and I'll buy a house here in New York in about 3 years. And the first thing he said was, 60,000, that'll get you a lot in Ohio. Didn't think nothing of it. But then when Amazon offered me a job, they offered me a job in New Jersey. And then my uncle asked me to put in a bid for Ohio. I ended up putting in the bid for Ohio. I didn't think that they would actually accept it, but they did. And then I ended up in Ohio on my first salary job, making 50,000 a year with 50,000 over 5 years in bonuses, plus a raise after the 1 year mark. My first year at Amazon, I made 65,000. I was also investing in acorns. I invested 10,000 in acorns, and by the end of the year, I had about $11,000 to $12,000. Included paying off my car now that I was in Ohio instead of New Jersey. If I was in New Jersey, I could have just took the train or a bus. But because I was in Ohio, I needed a car. So I paid off the car with the savings that I had. I had enough to buy it in cash, but I wanted to improve my credit. And one way to do that is if you have the cash to already pay it off, you can take out a credit line on a car and pay it off anytime. So that's what I did. Once I paid off the car and once my stocks have increased by about 20%, I was then able to save money, look at real estate all year round, and I eventually started working for Tim Hortons as a general manager, made even more than I was making at Amazon, and I purchased my first house for $140,000. This was very exhausting. I won't lie to you, it was super, super exhausting. Working for Tim Hortons, I had to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's a coffee shop, and you have to be ready to open those doors, count the money, serve customers as early as 4 a.m. People are lined up at 4 a.m. for their coffee, best believe it. And I was the one handing it out to them in pitch darkness, okay? And I would do this 6 or even 7 days a week because if someone didn't show up, or if there was no one to close, or I had unreliable managers, which I did, I had unreliable managers, I had to show up 7 days a week, okay? And it was my district manager's expectation that I would be in that store for 7 days a week for about 6 months until my store was up and running proficiently. Within 2 months, I was able to purchase that house with Tim Hortons as my financial employer. Because of this, I purchased a house that wasn't a duplex, so it was a lot cheaper, and it had just come back on the market, so I was able to get a discount. It was listed at 145. I got it for 140. The interest rate was supposed to be 3%. I went to another lender that offered me 2.625%, which lowered the cost of the house even further. And then I even got an additional $3,000 due back at closing. This was a slam dunk deal that I don't even want to say the price, but just know you can kind of calculate how much I pay every month. I put 10% down, which I took. Here's where I took it from. I took 12,000 out of the stock market, and then I took a little bit of my savings and added that for the 10% plus closing costs. So that Acorns account finally got shut down. I no longer have an Acorns. And then I was able to purchase my house with stocks and a little bit of savings. Because of this, I was in a 2-bedroom apartment paying $1,200 a month. I now lived in that house with 3 bedrooms, brand new rehab for way less. I lived there for less than a month before I decided that I wasn't going to work at Tim Hortons no more. My car had just got its tires slashed, and I was just so depleted, so drained. I was on my 3rd week of working 7 days straight without a break. And I decided I was just going to go into the Army. So I hired a property manager, and I decided that I was going to rent this thing out. When I rented out the property, it was renting for $1,200 a month, and now rents for $1,275 a month. And let's just say I'm making a killing. Cash flow is coming like water. Okay, cash flow is coming because, the property was cheap. It was brand new rehab, and I was able to increase rents 3 times in 3 years. And I have a tenant that's still there until June of 2024 and possibly going to renew because she has children in college. So because of this, I was able to go into the Army making a little bit less, but now I have no expenses and I have cash flow coming in from the rental property. This wasn't necessarily planned. My plan by joining the Army was to get a better job when I leave, and to potentially, maybe if I like it, stay and get a pension. But that wasn't the goal once I realized what the Army was. And also, I didn't necessarily do what I had to do while I was there. So I can't just blame the Army. We all have our faults. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. And I decided to lean towards one of my strengths. And I knew that I wasn't making nearly what I was making in the real world. And I didn't maximize the Army as others did. A lot of people had college debt that was paid off in the Army. A lot of people studied different jobs that I didn't take advantage of. I was a licensed practical nurse, which is a great job, but some people were studying computer engineering, computer science, these type of jobs. And I just knew like I could go out, become a manager, make $30,000 more, and buy another property while interest rates are so low. So that's exactly what I did. And then because I got hurt while in the Army, I was able to get 30% disability, still getting that rental check from the first property. And now I purchased another property that's even more expensive, almost twice as expensive. So now we're looking at the time, at least $320,000 in real estate. You're looking at a disability income, and now you're looking at savings from the Army and stocks from just investing constantly. I put 10% down on the other property. So now we're looking at my wealth accumulate. We're looking at 10% on two different properties, at least 300,000 in net worth in assets. So that's $30,000 in net worth, right? Cool. Over time, I started to invest more and more and more. I have 401ks, Roth IRAs, and individual stocks that I continue to build. The properties also increased in value to the tune of $150,000. So $150,000 in assets just off that alone. I was then able to increase my savings and emergency funds to the tune of half of $100,000, half of six figures. So easily I was able to get to that $200,000 mark in terms of net worth. Then I was able to put money into a Series I bond. The most that you can put in 1 year is $10,000. So that's exactly what I did. That brings me up to 210. And then at the age of 25, I was able to invest in the stock market over $50,000, which brings me up to 260. Now, that's the individual stock market. We're not talking about the 401ks and Roth IRAs and all that stuff. But already you can see that at 25 years of age, I had already touched a quarter mil. And so without including my retirement accounts, you can already see that that quarter mil mark has been met. I'm 26 now. 26, I had retired at 25, and I unretired after going to Dubai and being completely bored. I was so bored. I was in Dubai for about 2.5 weeks with my little brother. We were just chilling, dirt bike riding, camel riding, all that stuff. I mean, the first 5 days were very enjoyable, working out, living in hotels. And then I just said, well, man, what am I doing? Like, it became as if I was living for nothing. And so people have to work in order to feel some sense of, some sense of belonging. And so that's exactly what I did. I got back to work. I started to prioritize my time into different things. And now that I do so many things, I can feel my life having some meaning, but I still have that time to myself on the weekends to produce videos like this or to do something else, which I absolutely love now. So that's how I made my first $250,000. Was it easy? I would tell you that, one, it didn't really come easy because it took 4 years of college and paying off my debt as it came. So that means every time I would get a bill from my college after I quit football, I was no longer on scholarship. And so I had to pay about 2 years out of pocket. And I went to a bigger school, which cost me even more money. I, that's one thing that I didn't have to do, especially if I wasn't going to play sports, is go to a bigger school, because I would have saved at least 10, 20, $30,000. But hey, it is what it is. I went to a bigger school, and so I spent the $30,000 to have a degree at that school. It is what it is. That $30,000 could have bought me another property, to be honest with you, and my net worth could have been even more tremendous than it is today. But 4 years of hard work to pay off debt, 3 years of grinding. It was really 2 years of grinding to get my first house, 3 years of grinding to get the second, and then 4 years of grinding to just be so financially free that I don't have to worry about nothing. So it really took about 8 years to get to where I am, and probably 7 if you include college to get to $250,000. And so that's just a little bit of of how I got to where I am. Obviously, we're now past that mark, and we're looking at bigger goals, 500,000. And that just comes with time. That comes with compound interest. And this is how the rich gets richer. I was actually going to make a separate video on how the rich get richer, and I think I still will, because I get to break down how my money is still growing on its own. And so we'll talk about that in a future video. But if you like this video, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day at 8 a.m. daily on YouTube and on Rumble, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Peace.